Music has sound, but so do the lyrics. Yes, even without the music, the lyrics themselves have sound. And the sound of the words can carry meaning. Broadly speaking, you can write lyrics that sound pleasing to the ear, or you can write ones that have a harsher sound. Don't we want all our lyrics to have pleasing sounds? Well, no, not unless you want the congregation to be singing only about pleasant subjects. And I'm not sure that's the case. We might occasionally be singing about sin or suffering, and these would require lyrics that sound a little less than pleasant. You see the correlation? Pleasing subjects require pleasing sounds, and harsh subjects, harsh ones. If a line is pleasing, it is said to be euphonious. If harsh, cacophonous. Euphony is created with long vowel sounds, and the consonants L, M, N, and R. Cacophony leans more toward short vowel sounds and consonants like T, P, and K. You can hear both of these at play in the third verse of Robert Frost's Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, which we talked about in an earlier video in this series. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. As you may remember, the speaker stops on his journey because of the beauty that he sees in the snow-filled woods before him. His personified horse doesn't understand the beauty and doesn't understand why anyone would stop for it. The sound of the first two lines, which are about the horse's impatience, is harsh, primarily with the repetition of the K sounds. The sound of the last two lines, which are about the beauty the speaker sees, the reason for which he stopped in the first place, are euphonious. Do you hear it? He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. So if you are writing a song about the violent storms of spiritual doubt, or the warmth of the sun as a symbol of God's providence, or the frustrations of persistent sin, or the movement of the Spirit in creation, you will likely choose words and compose lines with very different sounds, because these are different things. That's the general principle. Now let's move on to some particular sound devices. One of the ways that words have sound is called onomatopoeia. This, as you probably remember, is when the words sound like what it means. Words like crash, sizzle, crackle, smack, plop are examples of onomatopoeia. But onomatopoeia can be way cooler. Here's a line written by John Keats from his Ode to a Nightingale. The murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. In this case, the sounds of the whole line reinforce what is being described. Read it out loud a few times. Do you hear the hum and the buzz of the bugs on the quiet evening air? The sounds and the combination of sounds make the sound of those kinds of evenings. There are a few other technical terms that we can use to talk about the sound of lyrics. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds, as in those lines from Keats, the murmurous haunts of flies on summer's eves. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds, as in the phrase, a rolling stone gathers no moss. Alliteration is the repetition of the initial consonant sound. Fair is foul and foul is fair. But this is only the beginning. The sounds of words and lines of verse can be even more suggestive. Phonetic intensives are kind of like onomatopoeia on steroids. Here are some examples of what Arp and Johnson call phonetic intensives. The idea of phonetic intensives sounds fancy, but it's simply that certain sounds and combination of sounds sort of suggest certain things. Like FL often suggests moving light, GL suggests unmoving light, SL is associated with wetness, ST suggests strength, the short I often indicates smallness, and the double T in the middle of a word suggests sudden movement. This list is just the beginning of the incredible sound resources that are available to the poet and the worship songwriter. You don't have to memorize this list in order to write songs. As a matter of fact, I don't mind if you just forget it. For one thing, the list is incomplete. And the other reason you should forget it is that you already know it. We all do. This isn't the stuff that a bunch of nerdy poet people invented. They discovered it in our language. We just don't think about it. But poets do think about it. Good songwriters think about it. So if you want to communicate a peaceful beauty, don't use too many R's or K's or T sounds because these sounds are not peaceful or beautiful. If you want the worshipers to feel happy, don't use words with long vowel sounds like slow and deep and moon. These sounds create a whole different mood. I had a lot of trouble finding a praise and worship song that did very much with the sounds of the lyrics. And if you know of one or find one, please put it in the comment section below, because I'd love to see more examples of this. We all would. So I stepped outside of the worship song genre and went to Josh Garrels. I love Josh Garrels. He's a Christian writer, but he doesn't write songs for corporate worship. He's a musician and a poet, and he just writes great songs. Here is the first verse of his song called Perfect Love. O perfect love, come near to me, from hatred help me part, so I may bless my enemies with glimpses of thy heart. For I am wise and wicked, but foolish I must become. Your kingdom calls the little child. O Lord, please make me one. O Lord, please make me one. The subject of this song is perfect love, so we ought to expect the sound of the lyrics to be euphonious, and this is certainly the case. Look at the assonance in the first 4 lines. Love, come, and then the eh sound in perfect, hatred, help, bless, and enemies. There's also the consonance of the R sound, near, hatred, part, heart, and the M sound in come, me, may, my, enemies, and glimpses, and the M's continue into must, become, make, me, and there's the alliteration in hatred, help. Forget the names of these devices, just listen to the sounds of these lines. All these things sort of come together to create that euphonious sound. You'd think all this sound stuff would be really obvious and make the verse sound silly, but did you even notice it when I read it? No, and that's because Garrels is a practiced poet. But what you will perhaps notice is that when you listen to or sing this song, or when it becomes familiar and then you hum it in your kitchen while you're making tea, you may notice that you feel calm and soothed. And this is, in part, the effect of the sound of the lyrics. There are a few particulars I'd like to draw your attention to. For I am wise and wicked. The alliteration in this line also contributes to the overall euphonious sound of the first verse, which has made us feel so comfortable. But it also emphasizes an uncomfortable truth, that we are wise and wicked. We are not innocent or foolish like a little child. But we are not meant to feel bad here. This is not a song of confession. This is a song about God's ability to make us innocent. Do you see how this is reinforced as the harsh K sound in wicked is drowned out by the assonance of the childlike short I in wicked, foolish, kingdom, and little? That's just the first stanza. On your own, you can look at how Garrels uses sound in the next stanzas. They are equally impressive. So songwriters and those of you who choose the songs that we sing in corporate worship, consider how the lyrics sound. Don't just read them off the page, but say them out loud and feel them in your mouth. Are the sounds consistent with what you're trying to communicate? You don't have to go to the same length that Josh Garrels does in his song, but the sounds shouldn't work contrary to the purposes of the song. That's sort of the key. I'm not kidding. Say the lines out loud. I'm convinced that you get far more out of any poem when you read it out loud. And it's so cool that our praise and worship songs are meant to be said and sung out loud. It would be very unfortunate and ironic if the songwriter never considered the sounds of the lyrics. Thank you for viewing and listening, and I hope to see you next time.